Hello and welcome to episode 2 of A New Go of New Home Sales with Anya Chrysanthemum and John Lee.
Hey guys, I'm excited to talk about this episode here because this is really spawning out from my days at Silicon Valley. It's really about disruption, and be careful here. It's going to be fun.
All right. So today we wanted to talk about the last frontier, so to speak, the new home sales and why it's ready for disruption. So let's jump in. So before we get started with that topic, let's talk about unicorns. What are the unicorns?
Okay, well, I'm calling this the last of the unicorns because unicorns are generally, in tech talk, multi-billion-dollar industries, tech companies that have, basically dominated different industries. And the reason I'm calling us the last unicorn, kind of like the last Mohicans, we're like the last industry that has not been disrupted by technology. But just to give you some background about what unicorns pursue, they really look for industries that are huge. Obviously, if you want to be a multi-billion-dollar company, you need a multi-billion-dollar market, and we qualify for that. You also want industries that are fragmented. There are no dominant players, no standard practices. And you want one that's very inefficient. So there are opportunities for disruption. Now, what are the consequences of being huge? If you're a huge market, you attract a lot of new players. You can see what's happening now with the hot new homes industry right now. A lot of new builders are coming into this market. And so what does that create? From a business standpoint, market penetration. So a lot of people are trying to penetrate this market. It's also attracting a lot of investors. You see with PropTech. Fragmented. When industry is fragmented, usually the bigger guys start to eat up the little guys. And you saw that with market consolidation in the last few years after the Great Recession. A lot of the smaller guys were being bought up by the bigger players because whoever had the money could afford to do that. Inefficient. When a market is inefficient, it's ripe for an entirely new way of doing business and new technology. And just as an example, if you look at the video rental industry, remember there's a time there when we used to all go to movie theaters. Well, when the VCR came out and you had videotapes.
Now you're really dating yourself, John.
Yes, I'm old, but I'm wiser. But I don't want history to repeat itself in this standpoint because we want to change history here. But there was a big demand for all this videotapes to watch at home. So you saw this huge explosion of mom and pop video shops. So everyone wanted to appeal to that market. Now, what happened is with that growth, a big player like, say, Blockbuster or even Redbox, they come in, they start to buy up the little guys. So basically, Blockbuster basically owned every block and started a massive market consolidation. But they were using old technology. So what happened is Netflix came in here and they're saying, wait a minute, why do we have to go to video stores, return things, check out things, rewind tapes, and look at whatever's available in that store and get penalized if you turn it in late? I mean, it was just a terrible customer experience, but it was a high demand for that product. And so what they introduced was streaming. And guess what now? There are no more Blockbusters. I think there's one in Oregon, but that's just as a museum. What happens is technology can quickly disrupt an industry by using a whole new platform. But what that offers at the end, all those pluses and minuses and multipliers, it really creates a much more competitive market. And it's a new home market that's ultimately better for not just the consumers, but even for the new players, the vendors and the builders that survive.
The easy way to think about this happening more so right now is just a general real estate, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you think about the last 10 years and all the new players coming into real estate market, even companies like Compass that are basically reinventing the way brokerage companies operate.
Open-Door,
iBuying, of course, all of those are new companies that just made an appearance within the last, 5 to 10 years in that space. And if you think about real estate general side, they're always a few years ahead of new construction side when it comes to marketing, when it comes to everything, technology, they're always a few steps ahead of us. So I think this is definitely what's coming next into new home space. And again, I think I've witnessed it firsthand with the amount of companies that were approaching me personally to partner with them. And it's amazing how much money is currently flowing into new homes tech space.
Yes. So again, one of the major characteristics is a huge market. And just to put in perspective here, of the top 10 industries in this country, which is about 77% of the economy, real estate is number one. It constitutes 13% of the gross domestic product, the GDP. New homes has traditionally been about 10% of that, about $300 billion a year. But 2/3 of the people that actually want to buy a home are actually interested in buying new, but only like 9% per Zillow actually do. And that 85% drop off is terrible for our industry. It's terrible for any industry. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to gain back some of that market share. And I think a lot of it's lost because relative to used homes, not only is it a more complicated and expensive product, but there's been, like you said, a lot of money that's gone into the used home PropTech space as well as brokerages. New homes has been largely neglected.
Yeah, think about how much easier it is to buy a used home, right? Even, I mean, given all things being equal, even without technology, it's so much easier to buy a used home because you can walk through it, you can see exactly what it looks like. And even if you need to use a real estate agent to do the paperwork, it's easy process.
And they see pricing.
Easy pricing. Yeah. Compare that to a new home industry where you cannot walk through it unless it's a spec, right?
Right.
You can't see pricing because, again, so many home builders are still refusing to share the pricing. And so comparing one builder to the next builder becomes very, very difficult for home buyers. And many of them just decide to give up in the process and go with the use. So again, we're going to be talking about how we can make it an easier process for them so that hopefully we can increase that number. And actually, John, I think the latest number from Zillow is 13% now of all buyers are.
Yeah, with this COVID thing and a lot of people are afraid to show their homes. Yeah, it's kind of shifted that, but that's not because
I agree. It's not because something that we did. I think exactly. Unfortunately, it's because they didn't have any other option. There's no.
Exactly. That's not the way you want to sell things. It's because you had no options. We want to give them options. We want them to love the product. We don't want them to have to settle for used. But things are changing in the tech space here. You know, over on the right, these are the top 10 industries that are getting tech startups.
For those who are listening, just so you guys can see, I'm going to read you the top 10 real quick. So healthcare, financial services, consumer product services, logistics and transportation, business products and services, construction, government services, and then number 8 is real estate.
This is where the tech money has been going to historically, but we're starting to see in the last few years, billions of dollars moving into real estate. Obviously, real estate is booming, not just here, but around the world. So we're going to see a lot more tech startups.
And just so you guys can also kind of grasp the idea of just how much money is coming, like think about the companies in other industries where they receive so much funding as a startup that they don't even turn profit for years and years and years. And most of them lose millions and millions, if not billions of dollars. I mean, take a look at Zillow's attempt at iBuying and what happened there, how much money they've lost. So imagine if that kind of money is going into new home sales, into the tech.
One of the other attributes about a unicorn is it's a highly fragmented industry. So there are no industry leaders or standard practices. And in the US, it's about 50,000 builders in this country. At its peak back in 2006 or so, I think it's like 70,000. There's some consolidation after the Great Recession, and then people are getting bought up. But now with the resurgence of the new home market, it went back from like 45,000 to about 50,000 now. But one of the reasons why this is highly fragmented is because this product is the most complex, expensive product that anyone's ever going to make. It's also a very complex purchase. So it involves many different pieces that you have to buy in pieces. And, you know, it's a collaborative purchase and it's an investment that you happen to be living in. It's also a reflection of your lifestyle and who you are. And the other part of it is this is not a frequent purchase. The shoppers are new to real estate or construction and architecture, and they need to be educated. But technology can solve all these obstacles.
So I like to think about this, how pandemic changed the way people live their lives right now. Like it's the first time in our history that we're not tied down to a specific location, or many people are not, right? Like historically we've been tied down to like our farm, to like whatever the situation was. Then it was our office, our cubicle, but now we're free to move about the country, right? So that's why you see so many people moving suddenly out of California to Florida to Texas. And so for those consumers, say if I'm going to move to Texas, I really don't care where in Texas I'm going to move. I just want to buy a beautiful home for 300 grand that's going to look like a freaking castle, right? Because in California, 300 grand won't even get you a little shack. So for those buyers starting that process of buying an unfamiliar state, certainly unfamiliar builders, there may be local builders that are well known to local population, but really not known to somebody moving from California. Think about the process of shopping for them, where they would have to start from scratch, essentially going and like searching on Google for the new home builders, right? It's a much easier process to just buy an existing used home, because you have all those listings in MLS, it pulls it all. But with new homes, it's not complete listings, right? Unless it's a complete home. If it's just plans, it's to be built, you really can't see it. You really can't find it. So it's a nightmare.
Right. That's why we need technology to solve those obstacles. The other major characteristics of industry that's ripe for disruption is that it's very inefficient. And you can tell when things are inefficient is obviously in our industry, we have agents. Agents, anytime there's an intermediary between the buyer and the seller, is not direct to consumer, like you may see online now with e-commerce, it's ripe for some streamlining. The other part that adds to our inefficiency is we're probably the last industry where you may start shopping online, but they try to take you offline. The buyer wants to stay online. That's why they started there, but we immediately take them offline. So that makes it very inefficient from a e-commerce standpoint. There's not that direct to consumer aspect. Mm-hmm. Why is it very inefficient? And particularly to our industry, there's just many steps in this process. There's lots of intermediaries and it takes months to purchase. It already sounds scary just me talking about it, but the data is not integrated. There's many handoffs. As you know, there's ERP systems, there's the content piece, and that's visually has to be created for them on the fly. There's multiple channels that you go through in making your purchase through that complex sales journey. There's the CRM that deals with you online and offline. And then there's the whole sales process and construction process. So basically, amid that whole crazy journey, there's a lot that's lost in translation. You know, basically the buyers already start off the shopping journey not understanding builder speak, real estate speak, financial and legal speak. I mean, there's just misunderstanding of a lot of terms. And the other part, unlike an online shopping experience where marketing and sales are combined, we traditionally separate marketing and sales. So marketing may get people to the table, then they have to pass them over to somebody else to hook them up with a salesperson who has to now relearn everything that the buyer has already decided on. And partly is because they can't buy online. Mm-hmm. And all of this just exacerbates this lengthy post-sale construction and closing process. I mean, that finish line is way, way down the line. And with the COVID, it's not, you know, it may be more than 12 months. They want to continue that transparency, that journey online, wherever they are, anytime, anyway, anyhow.
And you know what drives me crazy right now? The whole talk of buy online, because obviously a lot of builders have implemented buy online, and there's, the technology has been around for quite some time, but I think there's a big misconception of what buy online is being represented as, right? Like when I think about buy online, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go online, I'm going to click, I'm going to choose my home site, I'm going to choose all my options, I'm going to pay for the house, I'm going to buy it online, which is exactly what we're doing at Inugo. Mm-hmm. Yet there's a lot of other buy online options out there where you go through the process and it's, oh, somebody will call you about your reservation. So you don't even buy a little bit of a bait and switch there. It's just a reservation. It's just another way to say, I want somebody to contact me, which drives me crazy because again, like you said, it's consumers want to be online, why are we taking them offline? We should be able to provide them with the experience online, offline, where they want to be, not us pushing them in one direction.
Yes, and like the picture shows you here, I basically have a fire brigade where you're passing these buckets, and as you pass it, it has to go in a sequential way. The data is all parsed up. If you make this analogy with data, as you pass it along, data is dropping out. The water is being spilled as you go along there. That's one of the big problems for our inefficiency is the data does not flow with the customer and with the product and with the builder. What we want is to go from a bucket brigade to a fire hose where it's streaming, AKA Netflix. We don't want to be back in driving to return your videotape and, going back and forth, handing things off and, next guy gets it. We want to be streamed wherever we want, in whatever format we want and how we want. And that gives opportunity for disruption. This next slide, which shows the Great Wall of China, which has been there for thousands of years, and it protected the borders for China. And I think it's like 3,000 or 4,000 miles long. It was great for its time. For our industry, the Great Wall are these competitive barriers. The homes only virtually exist. You have to buy it in pieces. It's a complex, risky, and expensive investment. It's a collaborative purchase. It's not something I just go do on my own. My wife would kill me. It's a lengthy shopping, construction, closing process. There's many handoffs. You can't just talk to one person. You have to talk to every person and then go around in circles. And you often have to sell something to buy something. How many products do you know that you actually have to sell something to buy something? So those are formidable competitive barriers. But what happened to the Great Wall of China? It was great when you're riding horseback. Well, when planes developed technology, and then satellites, and now drones. Well, the Great Wall turned from being a great military barrier to being a great tourist site now. We don't want our competitive advantages to disintegrate because of technology. We want to use technology to help us obliterate our competition.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you mentioned, one of the obstacles is like how often do you actually have to sell an existing home before you can buy that home? And when you think about buying a car, for example, most people do have a car that they end up trading in, but there's avenues to go about that, right? Like it's so much easier, the process of that, than trying to time the market when your current home's going to sell, your new house is going to be completed. So now it's exciting to see new companies like Open Door coming in on the scene to help with that process. But we definitely have a long way to go until we become just as efficient as automakers there. Exactly.
All right. Like I said, technology can break down the barriers, and the tech savvy consumers are already there. I always thought the millennials, they are my greatest market, but they're always too young. Well, finally, now they've grown up and they're buying houses to the point that they are the biggest segment of new home buyers. Now, the problem is the builders haven't kept up with the way they want to shop. I think the risk is not that you're going to build a product that doesn't resonate with your consumers, is that you don't build a product that resonates with consumers. And there's a lot of money that's pouring in, like we alluded to. It's not just the venture capital firms that are investing billions into PropTech as well as FinTech, because PropTech and FinTech, the financial technology, they're kind of two sides of the same coin. You need both to actually transact, but also big builders with their large software development teams and IT staff are moving into that. They've already moved into buy online capabilities and better customer experiences and sales kiosks and things like that. So the remaining 49,000 other regular size builders, smaller builders, need to keep up, because consumers are going to gravitate to what they feel most comfortable with. Mm-hmm. I actually think at that point, then it's actually riskier to keep the status quo than it is to prepare for the tsunami of disruptive changes. A lot of people are saying, well, let's wait to see how it all plays out. I have all these systems I currently use, too hard to train, too hard to rebuild and do all this stuff. The gap the time frame to change is much shorter than it has been historically. I've seen in my 20 years here more changes in the last 5 years related to technology than the previous 15. And I think in the next 3 years, you're going to see more changes than the last 5 years. The problem is the changes are going to come faster, but the time to build up for that is going to take longer because it does require ripping out your old things, building for the cloud across all your channels, training new people, hiring new people, doing new sales and marketing, and connecting all your different systems together. How are you going to do that within 3 years if you don't start now?
Yeah, and I think the saddest part about this is that for most consumers, when they think about building a new home, when they have a choice between a big national builder and a smaller custom builder or a smaller production builder, I think most consumers generally want to build with a smaller guy. They want that unique, different home. But unfortunately for those small guys, is that they're going to be competing not only on product, which generally speaking, they could absolutely win on product, but they're going to be competing on how they sell. And that's where the problem comes in, because for most consumers, they're not going to go jumping through hoops just to buy that special product. They want what's easy. And the more and more we go in that direction, the more and more they're going to expect easy. And I think a lot of people in our industry talk about like, oh, we shouldn't necessarily dumb down the process and say like, oh, it's an easy process to buy a new home. But with technology, we really can make it easy, right? If I can show them exactly what it's going to look like, then it makes it easy. If they can visualize the whole process, it does make it easy. So I think that's where we're like pushing our, feet into the ground, like stalling, because we're like, no, like we can't go so fast. But the reality is, we have the technology that can help you see not only the home inside from every single angle, but you can also see exactly what it's going to look like sitting on that home site that you picked. So we're there. It's, it's just a matter of implementing that technology.
Well, in this new digital world, you're starting to see the convergence of marketing and technology, which is called MarTech. Marketing at its bare essence is connecting buyers with sellers. Technology just improves those connections. And if you're a small builder, one of the main reasons you're selling not just your product, but you're selling a better quality of customer service to these home buyers versus, say, the large mass builders. But if you can't communicate with better customer service in the language that your ideal customers speak, then you're going to lose them, because then at that point, they're going to shop based on price and brand and just maybe popularity. So I think technology can be viewed as an asset and not a liability. This leads to this perfect storm for disruption, which I'm calling the winds of change. Now, it seems very stormy here, but one of the things that's characteristic about our industry is that we've been working in a very low pressure environment because, times are good. There's not a big market industry leader. It's a huge market. It's inefficient, but we're all inefficient, so it's okay. But what we're realizing now that there's a lot of high pressure that's moving into this low pressure environment. There's a lot of new technology that's coming in here. There's billions in tech investors money coming. There's a lot more tech savvy consumers that demand it. And now you even have COVID that's driving a lot of virtual purchases. And I think that high pressure moving in a very short time frame is going to really disrupt this market and really become a perfect storm of change.
And so one thing I do want to say here is last time I was in Phoenix for a housing transformation summit, I heard Ken Peterson of Shea Homes speak. He delivered a keynote about just some of the technologies that they're using to sell their homes. And I would say, quote unquote, completely virtually. So he gave an example of a community that they're building. Average home sales price was over $3 million. they sold out the entire community without having a physical model in the community. So everything was done virtually. So the client would be able to see the home, the community, the view of everything, and it's all photorealistic. I mean, it's rendered, but it's as if you're watching a video of the community and not something that was created digitally. Same thing with the home. When you're walking through the home, the model, it feels like you're inside a real home. They're essentially doing the whole process virtually. And so sitting in that room, I could just feel the kind of like the aha moments for most builders in that room, that they're like, oh my gosh, like I don't even have a 3D tour maybe, or maybe I have a 3D tour, but it's not anywhere near this, where my goodness, like look at what's possible. And until you start hearing those stories, you think like, nobody's really doing that. But there are people already doing that. And the thing is, the consumers are going to be attracted to that.
Mhm.
But I think for a lot of smaller builders, especially, the biggest concern has been the finances, right? Like you're a small team, you don't have a huge marketing team, you don't have a lot of extra resources to spend, but that is okay because the cost of all this technology has dropped down drastically from like 10 years ago. And I think that's when first 3D tours kind of started to gain popularity. And maybe when you checked into the pricing, it was a lot of money, just like big screen, flat screen TVs were a lot of money 10 years ago. But as that technology becomes popular, the cost comes down. And I think the more builders start to implement the technology, it's going to drop down in price further and further. So I think, John, great news is that overall, as tech continues to dominate the industry, as tech continues to enter the industry and more money flowing into it, yeah, we're going to have some challenges right now with COVID and longer processing times for those 3D tours, and maybe the cost is a little bit higher. But overall, like compared to 5 years ago, we should start seeing those things come down.
I agree. I mean, not that content will become commoditized, but it will be more available to the masses. Obviously, there is opportunities with scale and just newer technologies that we're using. Goes all the way to software applications. A lot of things that were very hard to set up, very hard to maintain, very costly to maintain. Those prices will be dropping down. Everything from websites to CRMs and everything in between. So one of the things that puts us at the forefront of things is we create content. And for me, I always say that content is the tip of the spear for changes. I've been here for 20 years, and every time they change a medium from print to digital, or they introduce some new visualization technologies, or have to have thumbnails, or has to be available for mobile, we are always the first ones that have to adopt that change, implement that change, and do it at a scale and at a price point that's affordable. Because if we can't, we will be out of business. So you're right. As demand increases, we will raise some prices probably to learn some things, but ultimately we will make it so that it's ubiquitous at a affordable price. But yeah, you can see back in the past, we start off with static renderings, and it was just back in the day, it was just like 2D black and white. Then they went to the color, but it was still hand drawn. Then we went to photoreal, but it was all static. Now we have digital marketing 2.0 in a sense that's all interactive content. And it's not just done by the builder or the rendering company, it's done by the consumers. The consumers design what they want to see, and then it translates it back for the builder to build that house. Ultimately, the builders just want to sell the houses and build it. That's what Bob the Builder has started out doing. They got sidetracked with all this other stuff. We're trying to make it easier for them and the consumers.
Unfortunately, still, when you go to some home builders websites, you still see those black and white renderings.
Yes, there's still a lot out there. It takes a long time for a lot of people to change, but the traffic we're getting to will determine the winners and losers, because at the end of the day, in this competitive environment, it really is what I call a battle for eyeballs. And this is kind of like Silicon Valley speak that I learned 20 years ago. A lot of companies back then used to be valued on how many eyeballs they got. But basically, from a marketing perspective, those eyeballs achieve one of the first marketing goals, which is attracting an audience. You need to have marketing that speaks and connects with the buyers that you're trying to reach to. So our technology and other similar technologies are attracting that audience. Once you get that audience to your platform or to your website, you need to engage them, because ultimately you want to convert them into sales. And that's what we call stickiness. The longer they stick to you, the more likely they're going to buy from you.
So what John is talking about here is when you bring that customer to your website, right? You spend that marketing dollars, you showed them something on Facebook or whatever that they said, oh, this looks cool. Let me check them out. Now they go to your website. So what are they doing on your website that they're sticking to it, right? What kind of content are they engaging with? Do you have engaging content, or is it just black and white pictures? Or do you offer a virtual tour, or do you offer an option to build a house so they can see what that house looks like with different elevations and different colors? So that's what John means when he says sticky content. Sticky content is the more immersive that content is, the more involved I feel as a customer, the more likely I am to stick around, and the more likely I am to buy, because I become emotionally invested in the process and I take ownership now of that virtual home.
I agree. This is really a competitive battle, not just a battle for the eyeballs, but it's coming from many fronts, because obviously everybody's trying to capture that audience. And, a large part of that is the existing portals, which are really highlighting used homes. Obviously, you have a lot of brokerages that are pushing, their listings. And you also have the big builders who already have the brand name and they have the big bucks. So you really need to attack it from a different front, which is using a better customer experience via technology, those engaging ideas like Anya just presented. The other challenge in this battlefield is it's on multiple battlefronts. It's omni-channel now. This is not like most e-commerce purchases where you go to that website and you just purchase in 10 minutes in that one location. This may take many months of discovery and exploration, shopping across many different websites, saving many different designs, and of course the inventory of homes and availability of homes are always changing. So and they may come to your sales center and they go back to their website and then they get a social media post talking about a certain community. And so you need to be approach them and relate to them on any channel. And the way you do it is from these high-tech weapons that we will be introducing, which is at a high level apps. Winning the war. I'm going to tell you the secret. The secret really is not the content. The content is king, but the real secret weapon is the data. The data is the gold. And when you put the content plus the data together, it equals great knowledge. And as you know, knowledge is power. The reason that data is so important, because the data holds the pricing and holds the products, but it also keeps track of what the buyer is doing. If you don't know what they're doing, when they're doing, what they're doing it with, and where they're going or when they're walking out the door, you don't really know how to approach them as a salesperson and know how to even market, where to market to them and how to market to them. So the content is a great way to attract an audience, but that data is the gold. And that's part of the reason why, gold is part of our color.
Yes. And you know what? I think that's one area, the data is where 99.9% of marketers really, really struggle. I think we're able to produce this great content, but then when it comes to discipling that data, a lot of marketing professionals are still not comfortable with that, or they don't know what tools are available. So that's what's going to be so great about the Inugo portal, is that you as a builder will be able to see all the things that the customers are doing in the portal. So essentially, you'll be able to see across all of your floor plans, which one is the most popular floor plan. You can see of all the elevations, which one is the most popular elevation, which one is the most popular color people are selecting. So it really gives you a lot of data, and it's really easy to understand. I think that's what I love about that, is that you don't have to be certified in Google Analytics or any of this stuff, that you can open the back end of your portal and you can see very clearly how many people viewed this plan, how much time did they spend on this, what was the most popular thing. So now you as a builder know not only what kind of content is engaging to your potential buyers, but you also see which plan is the most popular. So maybe you can offer more plans that are like that plan. Because I think a lot of times we're building in the dark, and a lot of the data, the problem with data, I think a lot of it is what already took place, right? It's already happened, not what's currently happening. If we were building homes that data told us were popular before the pandemic, we would be striking out big time, right? Versus what people actually want during pandemic. And we're collecting that real-time data. So I think that that gives home builders a huge advantage there. And that's one I'm super excited about.
Yeah, without getting too techie here, and we'll leave this for a later session, but our data takes it a step further than that. Traditional data platforms are what they call data management platforms. They keep track of a lot of products that are most popular, or maybe which web pages people go to. But we built it in a new platform format called a customer data platform. So this is where we actually take all that product information and we combine it with individual personal information. So not only do I know what the most popular plan is, I know what Anya's most popular plan is. I know what Anya's most popular color and price points and communities and floor plan options and home sites. So if you just see popularity and trends, but you can't hone in on who that is, you can't make that sell. So by combining those product and people data is tremendous power versus all your competitors. And if you can persuade them because you know what they would like before they even know what they like, that's a sure sell. Yeah, so we'll talk more about this content plus data equals knowledge in our next session, which is the formula for success.
Yes, so stay tuned for that. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.